Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. Ton to go through as normal, transfer window, all of that fajazzle. I'm going to go through actually one of the other topics first because I don't know about you. I'm getting a little bit drained with the Mbumo Yokarez kind of stories, although there has been a massive update on Viktor Gyokeres, but I'm going to go through that next. So what we're going to start with is the midfield position, because there's been a couple of updates I want to bring you on here. So Manchester United, Everton and Al Hilal all have Wilfred Ndidi on their radar, and he is seen as good value for money with his £9 million relegation clause as a potential squad player. Nothing is advanced and with any club as of yet. Now, that came from Ben Jacobs. Now, that would be a really interesting option to kind of bring in. I'd love your thoughts on Wilfred Ndidi in the comments. He was a player a couple of years ago that I would have absolutely rated and wanted at United. 28 years old now. Would be a decent, like a cheap alternative midfielder to bring in. Really good defensively as well. So would definitely give us a little bit more kind of athleticism in midfield. You know, he's up there still with the top midfielders in terms of his defensive actions in the Premier League. When you think about it, top 95% for tackles, top 97 for clearances, aerials. Not a ball-playing midfielder, though, so the ones of you that want a more of a progressive midfielder, indeed, he's definitely not your man for that. But in terms of somebody to come in and be a shield to stop us getting walked through in the midfield, which I know some of you are concerned with, and I am as well, I actually don't think that would be a bad shout. And for £9 million, especially if we're on kind of limited budget, once we get Mbumo and then potentially a striker, and we're going to go through the striker news in a little bit as well, not the worst idea I've heard of, not by any stretch of the imagination, especially if you're looking for someone to replace Eriksen that's just left on a free transfer. £9 million, Wilfred Ndidi, not the worst idea. Could see, certain games, him and like next to Bruno in midfield, or even Bruno playing a little bit higher, and maybe Ugarte and Ndidi in midfield when you need to shut up shop, or you want a little bit more athleticism in there. Like, I could see that kind of not being a bad shot. Would he be my preference of midfielder? No, but if money's tight and you want somebody to come in even as a rotation option for Ugarte with some legs in midfield that's got the defensive ability of Ndidi, I wouldn't necessarily be against that, but we'll keep an eye on it for you. Obviously, Ben Jacobs, going back to the report, was saying that, Everton, Al Hilal, so it could be, United being linked with Ndidi to try and generate interest. That can be ruled out as well. But Ben Jacobs has been fairly spot on so far this transfer window with his reporting as well. So that's an interesting one to pay attention to and keep an eye on. But give us your shouts. Love your opinion. Wilfred Ndidi in the comments. Good move, bad move? Give us a shouts below, and I'll look forward to reading those later. Now, another player that we've been linked with for the midfield, who is a really interesting option, is Hackney. Now, there's been not necessarily loads of reports recently regarding him, but he is a player for a while that we have always been rumoured to be interested in and scouting, going out for the entirety of last season. His name just kept popping up as a player that United were looking for. So Manchester United head coach Ruben Amorim has been given hope of being able to lure Hackney to Old Trafford, as the Middlesbrough star will be allowed to embark on a fresh challenge after missing out on promotion to the Premier League. Middlesbrough have given Hackney the green light to seal a move away from Teesside, and but they are desperate to hold out for the best possible deal after discovering that Manchester United are not the only side interested in offering a route into the Premier League. Manchester United have been joined by Tottenham, West Ham, Forest and Aston Villa in contemplating whether to head to the negotiating table for Hackney. United see him as one of the best young midfielders in the country. Now, that came from Danny Rust and Dean Jones, who are good sources of information via Give Me Sport as well, suggesting that Manchester United might be preparing to go for Hackney, but then also so are other teams as well. So again, we need to be mindful that could be agent talk, linking United to get a better deal from other clubs as well. But he is a really interesting profile of player, and again, a player that we have been linked with for quite a while now. Rumours about scouting him as well. So he has the Michael Carrick connection with him being manager at Middlesbrough as well. So really, really good profile of player. Young, 23 years old. Really good ball carrying and progressive midfielder. So if you want somebody who's a little bit better on the ball than necessarily Ndidi, then I don't think we could look. I think this would be a good shout as well. Hackney, I think he looks a really, really promising young prospect. The report was saying, though, that nothing's going to potentially happen until the under-21 tournament, because he's gone with England for the under-21 tournament. So this is one maybe for later on in the transfer window. But again, that gives us time to get the other priorities in, and then we'll know with exits and sales how much we've actually got to spend on the midfield. But, top 99% off for progressive passes, top 97 for progressive carries, 23-year-old English, fits the homegrown quota as well. I like Hackney. I think he looks a really, really promising player to bring in. So, yeah, give us your thoughts and shouts on that as well. So really interesting, because obviously we've had multiple reports recently that we know it's the attack that we're strengthening. We've got Mbeumo still in negotiations. No real updates at the time of recording this video regarding that. I think we're just waiting for the final bid to go in, and they're just still ironing out the details of that particular deal and contract. Strikers seen as the next priority position, and then the reports have been maybe midfield and goalkeeper. I would say the two other positions that we're looking to strengthen, but there's not really been that many links with midfielders. Edison's a name that keeps coming up, but I don't know if we're going to have the budget to do that if we're going for Mbeumo and Yokarez, because they're after Cunha, because they're three big outlays. But some players like Ndidi at £9 million, or Hackney, who might, I don't know, there's no report, around the figures for that as well, but would potentially be seen as a cheaper alternative. I don't think are too bad shouts. Are they ideal? No. Obviously, we'd want to go out and get the best around, but if we don't have the budget to do that, because a lot of our budget depends on exits, and we might struggle to remove some players still this summer because of the wages that they're on, and that's just the reality of the situation. So, but it's interesting to hear some names at least being linked with the midfield. I'll bring you any more updates, but I'd love your opinion on Ndidi and Hackney. Two good shouts, not bad, not good shouts. Get involved in the comments and give us your thoughts on those. Now let's move on to the Yokarez news, because this seems like it's turning into a little bit of a saga. So Fabrizio Romano said that Yokarez is angry. Why? Because there was an agreement between the player's agent and Sporting that the player would be allowed to leave this summer for a transfer fee of around 65 million euros that was dependent on paying terms, installments, etc. Why this agreement and not paying the value of the release clause of 100 million? He replied saying, because the player has always been serious and professional. Last summer he received many offers but decided to stay, and in January he had the chance to leave but decided to stay. Therefore, out of appreciation, Sporting then agreed to let him leave for this reasonable sum. So Romano confirming the story that came out from Ebola, I think it was yesterday, saying that Yokarez is angry that they've gone back on this kind of gentleman's agreement. Romano confirming that, but also confirming the reasons behind it as well. And then he also said, but now the club is asking for an amount higher than 65 million euros and perhaps up to 80 million euros. And for this reason, the player may not be happy with the club's behaviour, which has made the situation tense. Let's see what happens, but I still see Viktor Gyokeres leaving Sporting this summer. So Romano kind of confirming the stories around, this so-called gentleman's agreement with his transfer value is arguably true, and that Yokarez is not happy with the situation, and there's more reports on him not being happy, which we're going to run through in a bit. Sky, though, said that Manchester United have a specific budget for the transfer market, understood to be allocated for the deals of Cunha and Mbeumo. After that, the club will need to sell some players in order to finance a deal of the size of Yokarez. Now, the reason that's important, because we do know that we are in a position where potentially, depending on the Mbeumo fee and the upfront cost or upfront payment that we'll have to pay Brentford, will depend on whether we can move for Yokarez or whether we will have to remove players or sell somebody first to bring the budget in order to get him. So that's worth kind of bearing in mind when we go through the rest of the stories. Christopher Michael said that Man United and Yokarez are in contact. According to our information, the striker has signalled that he can imagine a transfer without Champions League. Man United is not without a chance in the bidding for Yokarez. Ruben Amram has turned him into a top player at Sporting, and Christopher Michel is a very good kind of journalist as well, German journalist wanted to pay attention to, saying that we are in contact according to our information, and that he can imagine coming without Champions League football, kind of confirming the stories we've been bringing you over the last few days, that he would be happy to come without Champions League, and that we are definitely in contact with Yokarez's agent to be kept informed on the situation. I don't think the talks are quite as advanced as being made out. I think we're just understanding the situation and probably just making sure that no other teams have bid for him, because I think if a team does bid for him, that might accelerate our kind of plans, or we might then kind of hurry up with making a bid for Yokarez, which Dean Jones kind of confirmed as well, that Man United will be ready to accelerate a move for Viktor Gyokeres if they sense there is a chance of being beaten to his signature. So that's why I think we're in constant talks, is just to make sure that no other team has made a bid or made an official approach for Yokarez, because we don't want to, we don't want to get kind of caught short. And if need be, I think we could probably make a move, but we would ideally like to get our sales done first, because it's just a lot safer. If we know we've got the money in, we know what we're spending, it's just easier for the rest of the transfer window as well. But then, Record in Portugal said that Viktor Yokarez has told Sporting he will never play for them again. The player is ready to go on strike and will not return for pre-season. The relationship between the club and the player is broken. Manchester United and Arsenal remain interested. So Record literally kind of confirming that not only is Yokarez fuming with them, but he's threatening to not turn up for pre-season and potentially go on strike if they go back on this so-called a gentleman's agreement that they've got regarding the price. And again, this might be why there's no real movement on him, or that might be why there's kind of not even just with United, with other clubs, that are potentially interested in Yokarez as well. And then we've had the club president from Sporting respond, saying, I guarantee you that Viktor Gyokeres won't leave for 60 million plus 10 million in add-ons, because I didn't promise him that. This game his agent is playing is only making the situation worse. So there is a proper Barney going on between Sporting and Yokarez and his agent, and it always seems to be us that are involved in drama, isn't it, with transfers and stuff. Although, to be fair, it's not necessarily us. We've got nothing to do with this situation, apart from the fact that we maybe want the player that is now potentially going to be involved in all of this kind of drama. And then a good Portuguese outlet, though, has said that Manchester United are willing to pay up to 70 million euros for Viktor Gyokeres, but Sporting are demanding 80 million euros as well. So the whole kind of situation is turning really, really sour between Yokarez and Sporting, all over this kind of gentleman's agreement. Yokarez is not happy, prepared to go on strike, according to the report, prepared to not turn up for pre-season and stuff, and whether that will help us or hinder us, who knows? Who knows? It could be one that drags on for ages. It could, so I don't know how this is going to officially kind of play out, but it's not the best situation for us if we're waiting to, ideally you'd want a nice, smooth transition. We do a negotiation with Sporting and negotiate everything with the player and everything goes through, but if the player and the club start falling out over this sort of bickering, I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know whether that helps us or whether it hinders us, because Sporting might just put their foot down and say, well, no, that's it. It's the release clause or nothing, because ultimately, contractually, he has a release clause in his contract. So, technically, Yokarez can stamp his feet all he wants, but Sporting don't have to bow down to that. I mean, whether they will or they won't, because they stand to lose out on a lot of money for a player that, might go on strike permanently, or, it's a risky game to play from Sporting's perspective, but technically they don't have to sell him for less than what his release clause says, whether they've got a gentleman's agreement or not, because a gentleman's agreement is not contractually binding unless there is something where they've written it down and got it in a contract and stuff. So we're going to need to wait and see how that kind of plays out. What a messy situation. We always seem to, like I said, we always seem to be involved in transfer drama, don't we? We can never stay clear of it. Remember something happening with Antony as well, if you remember back. Always seems to be something with us, but I don't actually think we're the cause of this. This is something between the player and Sporting. But we'll need to wait and see. There's literally loads of updates going on. There's probably more stories coming out at the time of recording this video as well, because there's literally, the situation is turning a little bit ugly. But I'll bring you any updates when they come out. Give us your thoughts and shouts on the Yokarez situation in the comments. Now, in terms of alternatives, Fiorentina striker Moise Keane is not interested in a move to Manchester United this summer after they failed to qualify for Europe. So that came from Toto Meccano, suggesting, and there was a story yesterday that I brought you that Keane might have been one of the alternative strikers we were looking at, along with Vlahovic and a few others mentioned. But apparently, Keane is not interested in coming if we're not in Europe, in which case, bye, see you later. Not bothered. Interestingly, though, Corriere dello Sport have been saying that Manchester United have rejected a proposal from Inter to sign both Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Xerxy. United have made it clear Højlund is available for the right price, but no mention of kind of Xerxy in their reports as well. So that's interesting. There was some stories the other day coming out from Italy that maybe Inter were looking for both Højlund and Xerxy. But apparently, according to Corriere dello Sport, we've rejected the proposal to sign both players, but potentially might still be up for selling Højlund. So I hope that means that Xerxy's potentially staying, because I think he deserves at least one more season to kind of before making a judgment on him, because I think he turned his form around completely this season, and actually we missed him towards the end of the season as well. So I would be cool with keeping Xerxy, but obviously the Højlund situation we're aware of. We know what's going on regarding that. Now, another position I mentioned at the start of the video that we're looking to strike, there's maybe the goalkeeper situation. So ESPN have said that Donnarumma wants to stay at PSG despite Manchester United and Inter Milan inquiring about the goalkeeper. So has all that kind of nonsense that's been going out from French reporters and stuff about United being interested, is that just agent talk? We don't know if ESPN are kind of making that up as well. Like who knows? Donnarumma wants to stay at PSG. So the latest on Donnarumma is he wants to stay at PSG despite interest from United and Milan. But again, was the interest genuine? Was it just agent talk, trying to get a new contract from PSG? That's what it kind of felt like with the stories regarding Donnarumma. But again, we'll keep an eye on it, because the reports are PSG might be wanting to go for Chevrolet. And if they get Chevrolet, then that does put Donnarumma in a position where they might be willing to sell him. And we'll just need to wait and see what kind of happens. But it does feel more like an agent pushing for a new contract, because if he's in the last year, 12 months of his contract, it makes sense that an agent would kind of want to push for a new deal if PSG want to obviously offer him that new contract as well. But we'll keep an eye on that one for you. Another goalkeeper that we've been linked with is Ter Stegen. So Manchester United have reignited their interest in Barcelona goalkeeper Marc-Andre Ter Stegen amid the uncertainty surrounding Andre Onana. Ruben Amorim's side are currently in the process of assessing goalkeeper targets for next season, and the German international has emerged as a leading target. Manchester United are exploring several goalkeeper alternatives as part of a broader plan, and Ter Stegen has emerged as one of the most concrete names under consideration. While no official offer has been made yet, Man United have confirmed internally that Ter Stegen could become a serious target if circumstances align. Now, that came from Rudy Galletti, who's a little bit hit and miss, but he's got a few things right recently as well, suggesting that maybe Manchester United would be looking at Ter Stegen should, the Onana situation play out. Because remember, if we keep Onana, we might be looking at a younger, backup goalkeeper to compete with Onana. But if Onana goes, we're going to need, obviously a number one choice. Ter Stegen could be one of those potential goalkeepers that we're looking for. But again, we need to kind of keep an eye on it. Graham Bailey said a similar thing, though, as well, that Manchester United are among several Premier League clubs who have been offered a chance to sign Ter Stegen from Barcelona. So again, could be one to pay attention to. We do know that we are, obviously potentially looking at a goalkeeper, but yeah, another name to throw in the mix, I would say, regarding potential targets for that position. But give us your shouts on that. Ter Stegen, yes, no, maybe. Give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Now, another goalkeeper, though, that we have been linked with is Nice's Marcin Bulka. So Nice's Marcin Bulka is one name on Manchester United's list of potential goalkeepers. United are still determining whether to go for a number one. Andre Onana hasn't been informed he's surplus to requirements. That's interesting from Ben Jacobs, because the reports were that he's been told to find a new club, but according to Ben Jacobs, he's not been told that. But it's an open situation. Emi Martinez also on United's radar, along with Atletico Madrid. So Ben Jacobs, again, who's been quite decent recently, suggesting that maybe we would be looking at Bulka from Nice. It wouldn't be a bad shout as well. Looks, I don't know much about goalkeepers. Isn't a position that I kind of study or watch highlights of, because it's one of these kind of positions. So I will bow down to your knowledge on that. Obviously, the Nice connection with us and Sir Jim. We weren't permitted to buy players from Nice last season because of the Europa or European rules. We're obviously not in Europe, so it doesn't prohibit us from signing players from Nice. Was it Todibo that we obviously got banned from signing last summer? So it would be an interesting kind of option. Would obviously be less negotiations with the whole kind of Nice connection and Ineos connection as well. But yeah, give us your thoughts and feelings on the goalkeeper situation. So a couple more names to throw into the mix regarding their Bulka, Ter Stegen as well, potentially. Emi Martinez, though, still seems to be the most linked goalkeeper. Lemens, Chevrolet we've had the other day as well. So there are a few names in the hat, I would say, with the goalkeeper situation. But we just need to keep an eye on it because I think a lot depends on exits in that position, either Bayindir, because if Bayindir goes, we're not necessarily going to have that much money to go and get a goalkeeper. So we might be looking at one a lot cheaper. If Onana goes and we get an offer from like Saudi or something like that, for example, that might free up more funds, in which case we might be able to go for a more expensive goalkeeper. So we'll just need to have a wait and see. Is that even a phrase? We'll need to wait and see what happens. Now, what happens with Onana then, if that doesn't go through? So Manchester United will sell Andre Onana if any good offers arrive this summer. They are waiting on Saudi clubs to make offers for him. So caught offside, suggesting that we would sell Onana if we get a good offer, but we're waiting on Saudi clubs to come in for him because it is seen that Saudi teams might be the more likely clubs to offer us, not just us the money, but offer us a good amount for Onana, but also his salary as well. So again, we'll need to keep an eye on the goalkeeper situation, but potentially one that we could look to sell in the summer would be Andre Onana. And then going through the rest of the exit news. So AC Milan have opened talks to sign Garnacho and are seeking a deal worth £50 million. Now that came from a really good South American outlet with like nearly 4 million kind of followers online as well, suggesting that AC Milan have opened talks to sign Garnacho, £50 million. That wouldn't be a bad shout as well. But again, the reports from like Romano and stuff are that he would prefer to stay in the Premier League, but we don't know about the genuine interest from Premier League clubs or whether they're going to want to pay those sort of figures for Garnacho. Again, we'll need to see how it plays out. I do think Garnacho would be key to maybe the rest of our transfer window, though, because he's one that we could sell for pure profit. He's not on the greatest wages as well. There's probably going to be more interest in Garnacho than Rashford and Antony and Sancho because they're on big wages. Garnacho isn't, so it could be an avenue where Garnacho gets sold, and then I think once Garnacho gets sold, then we might accelerate the rest of our transfer plans once we get Mbeumo over the line as well. So that would give us the money maybe for Yokarez, a midfielder, a goalkeeper and stuff. So again, this is I think this is the key to the rest of our transfer window, the Garnacho deal, but we'll keep an eye on it. But interesting that AC Milan are apparently have open talks with Garnacho for £50 million. So that wouldn't be a bad shout in my opinion. But I'm sure you'll share yours in the comments. And Antony is another player that we're looking to obviously remove. So Real Betis will make an offer for Antony in the coming days. That came from the Muppeteers. The Mail was saying that Real Betis want further talks with Manchester United over a proposed deal to sign Antony. They want another loan with an option to buy for around £35 million. I mean, I think they should jog on, pay the money, pay his wages. Another loan where we're paying some of Antony's wages, unless they're going to give us a loan fee, which covers his monetization cost. Pay up. You're about to get money from selling Cardosa to Atletico Madrid. That will give you the money to buy Antony, and then we might be waiting on it as well because there is interest potentially from buying Leverkusen with Erik ten Hag, and they've just announced that they're going to sell Florian Wirtz, or we've had the here we go for Florian Wirtz going to Liverpool for a massive amount of money, which would give them some money as well. So again, we'll need to keep an eye on the Antony situation. Ekrem Connor, though, who we haven't heard of from a while, he went through a spell of literally linking us with every player under the planet, but saying that Real Betis are in negotiations with Manchester United to keep Antony for another season following a successful loan spell. Betis are facing financial limitations for a permanent transfer and are exploring an extended loan that includes a loan fee and shared salary obligations. Like, no, thank you. I don't want to be loaning Antony or Sancho if we can avoid it. Obviously, if the interest is limited and it comes to the end of the transfer window, we get desperate, we might have to look at this. But at the start of the transfer window, when potentially you've got interest from other clubs as well, I don't think we should be doing a loan unless they do cover his monetization cost for this year and pay his full salary, in which case, yep, see you later. But there's other clubs that might be able to potentially pay for Antony. So I would be looking to do that personally, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure you will have yours. and I'm sure you'll share them in the comments. And then the final players on Rashford. So Fabrizio Romano said Marcus Rashford's transfer probability to Barcelona is 40%. Why only 40%? Because until this moment, there is no official negotiations between the two clubs. Rashford is one of the options on Barcelona's table. He is a player the club values, and they wanted to sign him last January, but Ansu Fati decided not to leave at the time. So the deal did not go through. Manchester United are asking for £40 million. So again, Romano suggesting that Barcelona might still be keen on Rashford. It is seen as Rashford's preferred destination, but how they're going to fund it and afford it, it might be one that drags out. Yeah, and the problem with these, like I said, that's why I said before, the Garnacho one seems like the more likely sale because of his wages. And that's the issue that we've got with exits, is the salaries that we've given out and the previous contracts limit the sales and limit the clubs that want to buy these players as well. So we just need to keep an eye on it and wait and see what kind of happens. But it is really frustrating. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.